And you know this from your playing days, how hard it can be to be relatively helpless on the bench injured.
It is very difficult, as we see Shaquille Moore coming up with the steal. And Helms misses the layup, but Manny Bates there to clean up the mess emphatically. But, yeah, Doug, I went through that multiple times in my college career, both the first game of my junior year and then my last year after redshirting, coming back. And it is difficult because it's hard to see your team struggle, and it's also hard to see your team play well without you, as Matthew Hurt knocks down his second three-pointer of the game.
Corey, I think the Hall of Fame coach Mike Krzyzewski is happy he put Matt Hurt back in the starting lineup.
I believe so. I believe the adjustment. Well, I think he's happy that Kevin Keatts started big. And so, therefore, he can get Matthew Hurt back in that starting lineup. But one of the things that Coach Keatts said was a struggle for them was guarding shooting when he does have the two bigs on the floor. And you've seen Matthew Hurt get open 2 times in a row for easy buckets.
Long two by Jericho Helms, who becomes kind of that guy for NC State now.
And now you're seeing DJ Funderburk picking up full court, and Funderburk capable of doing so, really playing more as a power forward in this scenario where he spent the majority of his season at the 5 spot. But I love the adjustment from Kevin Keatts, having both those bigs in the game.
Great back cut in the layup by DJ Stewart, 10-6 Duke.
And Duke starting out perfect from the field. Great pass there to be able to get DJ Stewart the easy layup.
Ball knocked away and out of bounds. It'll be Duke basketball.
And Matthew Hurt, who was averaging 19.5 points per game for the first 10 games of the season, only averaging 14.5 over the last 5 games. But you see the production and the increase as to his scoring over the past 2 seasons. A lot of it has to do with the fact that he got into much better shape physically, adding 25 pounds over the offseason to get himself ready to play with his back to the basket. That's where he's been a difference. But so far here this afternoon, he's been a difference from beyond the three-point arc.
And he drew Manny Bates 20 feet from the floor that time to make sure he didn't shoot. First miss of the afternoon by the Blue Devils 4 minutes in.
And a missed opportunity there from Wendell Moore because he drew 2 defenders. Matthew Hurt was wide open on the other side of the floor. Wendell Moore not swinging the basketball over that direction and takes a contested shot that ends up turning into 2 points on the other end for NC State.
Yeah, the layup by Bates off the feed by Braxton Beverly coming off the bench this afternoon. Wendell Moore gives it off to Stewart. He's off the mark. Back tap by Hurt. And the Blue Devils reset. Ball knocked out of bounds, and it'll be Wolfpack possession when we come back.
Well, Matthew Hurt off to a great start from beyond the arc, knocking down 2 threes early in this game. However, the Wolfpack hanging tough, continuing to put points in the paint. The Duke Blue Devils are 3rd in the ACC, scoring 76.1 points per game. That's not the issue. The issue for the Blue Devils has been defensively, as you see miscommunication on the defensive end of the floor, and never more evident than you see Jordan Goldwire, a good defender, trying to point to 2 younger defenders as to where they should be on the floor. However, Goldwire perplexed about the fact that no one is there to help, and an easy layup for Trey Wirtz against Notre Dame. And when you look at this team and what they've been able to do, Doug, it's significant struggle for the Blue Devils this year.
Well, the last 2 times out, Coach Krzyzewski's club has given up 91 points and 93 points. They've lost 3 in a row, and it makes me wonder, watching that video, Corey, at this time of the season, is that who they are? Is this their DNA, or can it be fixed or at least improved dramatically enough to affect winning?
Well, one of the things that we talked with Coach K about yesterday, and he said clearly, our program does not stop because of our struggles right now. We're going to continue to try to get better on a daily basis and try to help this team grow. He would love for it to translate into wins this season. However, if it does not, they're still going to try to continue on. And when you look at this Duke team, outside of Jalen Johnson, who's at the free throw line right now, and possibly Matthew Hurt, you would expect for most of these guys to be back next year and an opportunity to work on their individual games as well as their team game in a normal off season or somewhat, whatever our new normal will be. When you consider that you add Paolo Banchero and A.J. Griffin next year to this team, we would see the Duke Blue Devils most likely return to the top of the charts, but I'm not sure that it will happen for them this year. To answer your question, Doug, I think this is who they are.
Cam Hayes into the lane for a third time that possession, and his finger roll catches just the net.
And we talk a lot about the Duke defense. Their opponent's not much better. When we consider NC State, it's been a struggle for them defensively as well. If they can't turn you over, they don't stop many teams in the half court, so they have to rely on getting turnovers. And the Blue Devils, when they handle the basketball, have gotten great looks here early.
And the other problem for the Wolfpack are turnovers. Jericho Helms ahead of the pack to throw it down.
But that's NC State. You take defense and you turn it into offense. They have to play a 94-foot game. It's not about playing in the half court for NC State. They need to be able to get out and run, especially when you consider they've lost their best half-court scorer in Devin Daniels.
Jamin Brakefield has come into the game for Duke. There's a big block shot by the ACC's leading shot blocker, Manny Bates.
And very few teams turn defense into offense the way that the NC State Wolfpack do. And Jericho Helms taking off for the highlight, level dunk. And before we went to when you look at what NC State does, they turnovers for 16.2 to 18.4. Both lead the ACC. The problem is they've had too many games where they haven't been able to do so. And when they're not getting 15 turnovers at least, they don't win. And all of 8 of their wins this season, they've had 20 or more turnovers. So it's
or 15 or more.
Well, in the 8 wins. See, Dougie Fresh, they were 8-1 on that graphic we just said. And the 8 wins has been 20. Look it up.
I'm going to have to go back and look.
You got to look at that. Check it out. Check it out. See? You didn't think I was doing my research. I've done it.
Oh, no. I just thought you had misspoken. Your research is impeccable, CA. I would never go after that. But, turnovers tell a huge story for NC State on both ends of the floor this year.
Yeah, agreed. And when you consider the fact that they're playing without their leader, things have been significantly different for them over the last 4 games. Jericho Helms has stepped up offensively, but it's so difficult to replace what is happening defensively as well.
Taking a look to see if the shot clock had gone off. Yeah, it looked like he beat the buzzer, and the foul would have been committed before what would have been a shot clock violation.
And that's a bad foul. When you consider you're having Wendell Moore take a tough 2 right up against the shot clock, bail out defensively by NC State, allowing Duke to put 2 points on the board, and which most likely would have been an opportunity to go to their offensive end of the floor.
Tell you what, though, I like the way Wendell Moore has responded after a slow start to the season. Coach K says he's been playing with more confidence and more aggression really since December, and his numbers, as you see, the last 4 games have really popped. Coming up next on ESPN and the app at 6 Eastern, number 9 Virginia, which has won 9 of its last 10, hosting 12-6 North Carolina in Charlottesville. And Corey Alexander, I don't need to tell you, that is a big one, not only for the defending national champs from Charlottesville, but for the Tar Heels. This is an opportunity for them to really make a statement and get off that bubble.
It is to make a statement and get off the bubble, but also remember that the Tar Heels haven't played since last Saturday, where they were able to get a win at Cameron Indoor. Their Monday game was postponed, so it'll be interesting to see how the Tar Heels react coming into this game. And when you look at what's going on in the ACC regarding the NCAA tournament, right now, Joey Brackets has Virginia as a 3 seed, Florida State is a 5, but you look at North Carolina right now as a 10 seed, and Syracuse sits on the next 4 out, which I know makes you so happy. Dougie Fresh. But right now you talk about, 6 teams, possibly 7 in the mix for the ACC, which is much different from the early projections of 10 teams and 9 to 10 teams to begin the season.
All right, and already today, Syracuse has beaten Boston College, and then a thriller in Tallahassee. Florida State needed a end-to-end driving bucket to beat the buzzer to force overtime by Scotty Barnes, and they went on to beat Wake Forest. So the Seminoles probably will hold where they are, and maybe Syracuse creeps a little closer. But the story for this game, Corey, is the fact that we show all of those guys who Joey Brackett says is in the mix, and nowhere do you see Duke or North Carolina State.
Well, and of course, that's an issue for both these respective programs. But also, when you look at what these two programs have done this season, this is the first year that Kevin Keatts has been at NC State, and he did not bring in 2 grad transfers, not just 1, but 2 grad transfers. They went with the youth movement, and honestly, it has hurt the Wolfpack this year. He signed 5 freshmen, and now those 5 freshmen have to contribute in comparison to having experienced college basketball players and grad transfers. And it has hurt them this year when you consider that you lose Devin Daniels and you don't have that experience in the backcourt. We all know how important good guards are for the success of Kevin Keatts and his coaching style.
Right, he's still very high on both Shaquille Moore and Cam Hayes especially, but the reality is they didn't have, as all true freshmen haven't had, a normal offseason, normal summer, normal fall, and nonstop basketball for the last 4 months. So they are paying that price, at least for the time being, for the short term.
As are the Blue Devils. 6 freshmen for Duke, as well as their first ever grad transfer in Patrick Tepe. So as Matthew Hurt knocks down another 3, to the delight of the Blue Devil faithful, but Kevin Keatts not happy about that at all. And when you leave the best shooter on the floor wide open, oftentimes he's going to burn you.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is presented by 5 Hour Energy, the official sponsor of Getting Stuff Done. There's some of the images of Coach K and his Duke Blue Devils winning the national championship 5 times, and we should say happy birthday to the man behind that mask. He is 74 years young today, and you see all-time on his birthday, Corey, 9-4. So actually, is that less than his usual winning percentage on his birthday?
It is, but I'm still going to say happy birthday to the GOAT, even though he was coming for me yesterday, Dougie Fresh. He was coming for me yesterday. I don't appreciate it, but still love him regardless. And also, happy birthday to one of my favorite Blue Devils of all time, my man Jeff Capel, who celebrated a birthday yesterday, who was also on the bench for that 2015 national championship team.
Former great Dookie himself, back in the mid-'90s. Had one of the iconic shots in program history. You see Blue Devils on an 8-0 run to open up this 9-point lead. Wendell Moore has it knocked away, but he is fouled, so says John Gaffney.
And Wendell Moore taking advantage of his size over Shaquille Moore, and great execution by the Blue Devils coming out of the timeout as we get a look at Coach Keatts now in his 4th season at the helm of NC State. 20-plus wins in the first 3 seasons, and I don't think there are going to be many 20-win schools this season when you consider that there have been about 5 to 7 games cut out of what would be a normal schedule, and then so many postponements and cancellations. Very few programs will get enough games to actually win 20.
Matthew Hurt draws a crowd, so he gets off the 3-point line and knocks down the 15-footer.
I'm wondering if Matthew Hurt knew that he wasn't going to be starting today, because he is playing like, okay, he has something to prove here early. Of course, he shot the basketball well all year, but been ultra aggressive on the offensive end of the floor.
As you see, he's outscoring NC State all by himself, a perfect 4 for 4 from the floor.
And this is where Matthew Hurt has really improved. It's not just about being a spot shooter off the dribble, the 2-point mid-range jumper with a little bit of a step back in it, but now Hurt picks up his 2nd foul and has to go to the bench with those 11 points already. So the only thing that's slowing Hurt down here in this first half has been foul trouble.
There you see Jalen Johnson back into the lineup, the 6'9" freshman from Milwaukee. Helms is fouled as he tried to accept that pass by Jeremy Roach. NC State now scoreless, Corey, over its last 3.5 minutes. We should mention in this matchup, since Coach Keats took over NC State, he's never lost to Duke in this building, 2-0. And the last time, actually, Duke went to Raleigh and won in this matchup. There was quite a snow and ice storm, and the crowd was down considerably.
And Duke missing on an opportunity there to be able to put points on the board, but NC State returning the favor. And neither of these teams handling the basketball very well to start the game. And normally you see, these two programs getting out in transition, they are able to take advantage of those opportunities as Braxton Beverly checks back into the game. And interesting, enough, Braxton Beverly not even able to sit down when he goes to the bench because his body isn't allowing him to operate the way he's used to. And without him on the floor, it's been a struggle. NC State hasn't scored in the last 4 minutes and 10 seconds. So Coach Keats having to go back to Beverly just to get some type of leadership from one of his guards on the court.
Yeah, when Beverly's out of the game, as we saw during that last timeout, he's either standing or receiving treatment. So during this last break, he was laying on the ground and the trainers were trying to stretch out that back and keep him loose. Mark Williams at the free throw line. What do you make of his growth and maturation throughout this season, Corey?
I think it's been significant, and I think he's been a difference maker for the Blue Devils, protecting the rim. That's the one thing where you're going to get consistent production from Mark Williams, but he's given them points over the past few games and an interior presence which has been necessary. But also one of the things that's happened is with Mark Williams' emergence, we've seen a decrease of the role of Jalen Johnson because it's difficult to start Johnson, Hurt, and Williams. You need Hurt on the floor because he's your leading scorer and your shot maker. So Mark Williams emerging has really changed things for Jalen Johnson over the past few games.
Hayes has his pocket picked. Here comes Wendell Moore on the reverse.
Now, I will say this also. When you look at Wendell Moore in the starting lineup, along with Jordan Goldwire, there's been a difference defensively for the Blue Devils. And when these two guys are on the court together, and these are the two veterans that Coach K was depending on this season to lead this group, especially defensively in the backcourt, and they've done it here in this game thus far.
Well, I'm sure Coach K is much happier with the defense so far. Again, they've given up, Duke has in their last two games, 91 and 93 points, and the Wolfpack are not scoring nearly at that rate so far today.
There's another guy whose production has been down as well as his minutes since the return of Jalen Johnson, Jamin Brakefield. But Brakefield able to come in and contribute right away offensively, knocking down a three.
That's the 9th turnover for NC State.
And Duke getting it done defensively. Wendell Moore coming up with the steal and turning his defense into offense on his own. A nice left-handed reverse layup and showing off the left. I see you, young fella. Show the left hand off. Let them know what you just did.
Helms into the lane. And a foul, I believe, on the rebound. The ball also went up and over the top of the backboard and hit one of the supports.
Doug, for this game, and you mentioned the fact that, NC State has won the last two games in this building since Kevin Keats has been the head coach. Not only is Devin Daniels missing, but also one of the most passionate fan bases in college basketball. And, when you think about the fans that come to PNC Arena to watch the Wolfpack, there are very few that can make the noise that NC State fans make, and that's a difference maker, especially when you're taking on the Blue Devils. So I'm sure that's one of the areas, and Duke knows about it all so well when you consider their home court environment, but the Wolfpack faithful being missed significantly in this game.
Manny Bates has introduced himself to Mark Williams, blocking 2 of the freshman shots in succession, and that's what Manny Bates does. When we come back, we will tell you about the secret game back in 1944 and why Duke was involved. As we celebrate Black History Month, we remember Naismith Hall of Famer John McClendon, a legendary coach who had a stop at North Carolina College for Negroes, as it was called back in the 1940s and 50s. And in that time, in March of 1944, he took this team and put it up against a group of white players from Duke University's medical school intramural team. That team was filled with former college stars said to be better than the Duke varsity at the time. Sunday morning, March 12, 1944, while the Durham police was at church, the players from Duke University went across town and didn't let anybody know because, as you know, back at that time, blacks and whites were not allowed to mingle during Jim Crow. It would have been dangerous to have been found out, but they wanted to play basketball. And so what Coach McClendon did was show that his brand of full court basketball, which was revolutionary at the time, never seen by white folks before, was the future. And they wound up winning that game over Duke 88-44. The secret game didn't see the light of day for over a half a century, Corey, until the New York Times wrote about it in 1996.
And interesting enough, you know, of course, you and I have had the opportunity to call multiple games at North Carolina Central University now, which, you know, the North Carolina College for Negroes became. And we've talked about this game a lot, but we talked with Coach K about it yesterday, and he kind of gave me a history lesson on Coach McClendon. And I wasn't aware of Coach McClendon's, you know, not only attending University of Kansas and being one of the first African-American students to go there, but also what he did regarding James Naismith, the inventor of the game of basketball, and him going to Kansas to seek out, you know, James Naismith and find out more about the game, and of course became one of the pioneers of the game himself.
Yeah, young John McClendon grew up in Kansas, in love with the game of basketball, and when he found out from his father that the inventor of the game was a professor and the athletic director just up the road at the University of Kansas, that is where John McClendon wanted to go to school, and he became the first black man to attend that school. And he immediately went, sought out Dr. Naismith, befriended him. Dr. Naismith, in turn, took him under his wing, passed along all of his knowledge, and John McClendon took it and literally ran with it, Corey.
Absolutely. In no way we can talk about Coach McClendon, Duke University, and North Carolina Central University without bringing up my guy, Professor Ninth, a.k.a. the Ninth Wonder, Grammy Award-winning, you know, music producer, and who also, you know, is a huge part of both basketball programs at Duke as well as at North Carolina Central, and very good friend to Coach K. His Ninth is, I won't say helps him recruit, but again, he makes it to where a lot of players have a much better experience at Duke by taking his hip-hop class of African-American affairs.
Does that both, as you say, at NC Central and at Duke. He is an artist in residence. I love that title.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, again, Knight has to have a great title as Jeremy Roach it continues to the great field goal shooting from Duke, now shooting 66.7% from the field, 12 for 18 for the Blue Devils. And you know, they've been firing on all cylinders in this game, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that they've gotten the job done defensively, and they fed off that energy on the defensive end of the floor. And a lot of it's had to do with the fact that they continue to make shots on the offensive end.
And there you see, they have held the Wolfpack to just 3 points over the last nearly 14 minutes. And in the meantime, Duke has rattled off 22 points. It looks like a completely different team, Corey, than the last few times out that we've seen from Duke.
It really does, and not only from the standpoint of what they're doing on the court, but look at how many more guys Coach K is playing. You consider that you've had, you know, everyone getting involved in the action for the Blue Devils is Jericho Helms emphatically breaks the drought, but Duke has played 9 guys already in this game. As Coach K continues to go deeper and deeper into his rotation.
Yeah, and 8 of those players for Duke have scored, led by Matthew Hurd, who has 11 points, although he's been on the bench with a couple of fouls now for the last few minutes. Cam Hayes to Helms, over to Braxton Beverly. Shaquille Moore, drive and dish. Try again. This time it goes for DJ Funderburk.
And Coach K not liking the fact that NC State's starting to find a little bit of momentum on the offensive end of the floor. However, the Blue Devils still hold a 16-point lead.
No doubt about that, guys. NC State with just the 17 points, and the Blue Devils just keep pouring it on.
But, Doug, to Fonz's point, you know, when you think about the Duke Blue Devils, and this goes way back, you know, to the Stone Ages when I played against Duke, you saw guys in the passing lane. And right now, they're currently on a 24-7 run. They're shooting the basketball very well from beyond the arc, but it's the 10 NC State turnovers that have been the difference for the Blue Devils, for 12 points off those 10 turnovers right now. But it's the getting out in passing lanes. You know, Seth Greenberg talked about as well, putting, you know, good days on top of each other. This is the Duke level defense that he coached against. And this is what we've grown to know from Mike Krzyzewski and his teams. And again, it's refreshing to see that right now for everyone other than, I'm sure, NC State fans now with their 11th turnover on the afternoon.
And again, this is an NC State team that in its last game Tuesday against Syracuse turned it over 20 times, and they're well on their way to eclipsing that number, and you just can't win basketball games turning it over at that rate.
Well, and we often leave out the fact that Kevin Keatts is dealing with a lot of similar scenarios, as is Coach K. He's starting 2 freshmen in the backcourt. You think about Cam Hayes and Shaquille Moore, both very good players, and Coach Keatts loves those guys. But when you think about the fact that he does not have, you know, any veteran leadership in the backcourt outside of Braxton Beverly, who is playing through injury, it makes it difficult to win.
What a lineup we have for you tonight. North Carolina and number 9 Virginia square off at 6 Eastern here on ESPN following us. KD, Kyrie, James, and the Nets take on Steph and the Warriors at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific on ABC. And on ESPN Plus, pay-per-view at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific. It's the UFC 258 main card. Now that, Corey Alexander, is a lineup.
It is absolutely a lineup. Now, let me ask you this, and I know you follow it. If you're voting for MVP right now for the first quarter of the season in the NBA, who's your MVP, Dougie Fresh?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, you can never go wrong with LeBron. The way Steph Curry's playing lately, I mean, if you see, he's averaging 38 a game this month. Could he get into that mix if the Warriors start winning more games? Who's yours?
Well, for the entire season thus far, I have been saying Joel Embiid. What he's doing on both ends of the floor and the resurgence of the Philadelphia 76ers behind Doc Rivers, I'm thinking that he's the guy. However, the way LeBron James is playing right now, I may have to vote for LeBron. And I know that's going to be surprising for a lot of people that know me. I am a LeBron fan. However, I'm not a LeBron fan the way I'm a Michael Jordan fan. So with that argument aside, LeBron James is playing spectacular basketball right now, regardless of age, any of that. That doesn't play a part for me. But right now, the way he's leading the Lakers, he might be the MVP for the first quarter of the season.
Well, I think, Corey, just like back in your day, you could never go wrong voting Michael MVP. Other people got it, but in any given year, you could easily make a case for him being the best player. And the same is true with LeBron. You can't go wrong voting for LeBron. (37-17), Duke matching its largest lead of the game. And this is Jalen Johnson at the free throw line. Preseason first team All-ACC, coming off the bench these days. And in that game that they lost to Notre Dame, he found himself on the bench at crunch time as well. And Corey, what do you make of the minutes Jalen Johnson is getting or not getting at this point of his freshman year?
Well, one thing, considering we talk about all the freshmen this year and the fact that they missed, preseason. They did not have a true preseason. Duke did not have, I think they played maybe 3 non-conference games, 2 of those against Michigan State as well as Illinois, 2 top, 20 teams in the country. I think actually 4. And so when you consider they really didn't have much non-conference, and Jalen Johnson was injured, so he had to come back off of injury and try to integrate himself not only back into this Duke lineup, but try to find a way to develop a rhythm himself. And, he had big games. 24 points, 7 assists, 0 turnovers at Pittsburgh, but fouled out of that game in a loss. And when you look at what's happening with the freshmen this year for Duke, and again, the numbers beside their names, the ESPN 100 ranks, that is what puts the expectations on them. But college basketball is difficult for anyone who's never done it before, especially when you don't have the veterans around you to truly lead you. And I don't believe that the Blue Devils have had that. Goldwire is, a very good player, but he's in a different role as well this year than he's ever been in the past, as well as Matthew Hurt and Wendell Moore, who are only sophomores. So, Jalen Johnson is a spectacular talent. He's going to be a very good NBA player, but most likely this year will be somewhat of a forgotten year for him with the Blue Devils simply because of the team success has not been there, which you've seen from many of the top-level freshmen in Duke's past.
And with all that said, he's still averaging 12.6.5 rebounds a game. He's been twice named the ACC Freshman of the Week. He's had brilliant games, as you mentioned, Corey, right from his collegiate debut where against Coppin State, 19 points, 19 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 block shots, 8 for 8 from the floor. So he has certainly had his moments and is going to continue to have those.
And I asked Coach K yesterday, had he ever considered putting Jalen at the point? 3 summers ago, I had Jalen at the Nike Basketball Academy, and he was in my point guard group. So without the time that you would normally have in the summer, he simply said, Corey, it's not a bad idea. We just haven't seen enough of him with the injuries and the lack of time that we had to be able to see whether he could do it or not.
Coach K did also say the point with him, he's so good at getting downhill, whether he's got point guard next to his name, however you use him, you've just got to get the ball in his hands and get him going downhill.
Well, his greatest skill is his passing ability. And I've watched this young man for a very long time. I've seen him throw passes, and not necessarily just the spectacular passes, but the simple pass as well, which very few players make in today's game, as we see Braxton Beverly going to the bench and immediately going for treatment. Not even sure Braxton's going to stop at the treatment table, maybe going straight back to the locker room. And you hate to see this for Braxton Beverly. He's just battled through so much this season, so many injuries, and at a time where his team needs him so much. Coach Keats doesn't have much other opportunity than to play him because he needs his veteran leadership on the floor, but his body has just not been able to hold up to the rigors of college basketball this year.
Johnson denied by Bates. So at both ends, we've got great rim protection. Mark Williams with 4 block shots, trying to keep up with the ACC's best shot blocker.
Well, Jalen Johnson has put a number of players on posters this year, but I'm not sure if he read the scouting report on that one going in there against Manny Bates because my Manny was having no parts of that.
That is 3 block shots for Bates. Williams, the freshman for Duke, number 15 in blue, has 4.
Doug, oddly enough, Manny Bates went back-to-back games with no block shots.
I know.
Which is amazing. Now, he broke out of his shell against your Orange earlier in the week. But when you consider a young man with this level of timing, and Manny Bates just waiting for Jalen Johnson, and he knows Jalen Johnson's M.O., but Manny Bates not scared. he'll challenge anyone at the rim.
A little different than the outcome we saw in the who was it that he dunked on that we were calling that game?
That was P.J. Hall. That was P.J. Hall, who will live in infamy forever for being on the wrong side of the Jalen Johnson poster.
The Clemson freshman kind of bought it there.
I think that's the dunk of the year. I honestly believe that's the dunk of the year. I don't think anyone has, had anything quite that spectacular this entire season.
Coming up next on ESPN and the app at 6 Eastern, number 9 Virginia taking on 12-6 North Carolina. That follows us right here on ESPN. I find this matchup to be fascinating, Corey. The traditional bigs for Carolina facing the stretch 4 and stretch 5 for the Hoos. How do you see that matchup playing out?
Well, Sam Hauser is going to be a matchup problem for North Carolina, but the one thing that North Carolina has, when Garrison Brooks is playing his best, he's a very good defender. And so I'm sure he will draw the task of guarding Sam Hauser in that one. But right now, NC State needs to figure out something at halftime because the Blue Devils have been all over it on both ends of the floor here today.
It's halftime. Let's send you to the Jeep Halftime Report. You're watching Saturday Showcase presented by 5 Hour Energy. The Duke Blue Devils all over the North Carolina State Wolfpack as we get set for the start of the second half. And welcome back, everybody, along with Corey Alexander. I'm Doug Sherman. Glad you're with us. And we started the broadcast, Corey, talking about how poorly Duke had played defensively this season and especially lately. But now, 20 minutes of game action later, the story's completely different.
Completely opposite from what we've seen from the Blue Devils, who've given up over 50% field goal shooting from their last 3 opponents for the game, but it's been nothing like that here for the Blue Devils. Mark Williams doing a great job defensively protecting the rim, but it's been about turning turnovers into points. Wendell Moore getting out into the passing lane, coming up with the basketball, turning into points on the other end. 13 North Carolina State turnovers have been 16 Duke Blue Devils points here in the first half, and they've continued to use that effort to build an 18-point lead.
There you see the numbers. Duke came out firing from the perimeter. Matthew Hurt with 11 points to lead all scorers. And then NC State never was able to get going. And as Corey mentioned, there you see the 13 turnovers. There's no way you're going to win a basketball game turning it over at that clip. So, Corey, if you had to handicap it, is it more Duke's defense or more the trouble NC State has offensively?
Well, it's a combination, of course, but I'm actually going to give Duke the credit because right now the Blue Devils are 15th, dead last in the ACC in defending the three-pointer. But right now, NC State 0 for 2 from 3. Now, they don't have the same lineup that they're used to playing with the 2 bigs on the floor. Funderburg not going to shoot as many threes, but still, Duke has done a great job defending the three-point line and not giving NC State anything easy.
Well, we received word at halftime that Braxton Beverly is experiencing back spasms. We saw him leave the court area with about a minute and a half remaining in that first half, and he has not come back out to the bench. And so Kevin Keatts having to again make do with a diminished backcourt, Corey.
Kevin Keatts, that was a perfect example of what we're talking about. Shaquille Moore, who will be very good at NC State in time, gives the ball to DJ Funderburk, running side by side, going to the basket. And that's just a simple rule. You don't give the ball to the big man. The guards keep it and make the play for the big man once he gets in scoring range. But right there, that was just an example of what Kevin Keatts is having to deal with right now. He's having to teach more so than he's having to coach, and that's because of the lack of experience with his group thus far.
Yeah, they're well on their way. NC State is to losing for the 4th time in 5 games since that devastating knee injury suffered by their best player, Devin Daniels.
It's been the Blue Devils with the turnover issues to start the second half. 2 of their possessions have ended in turnovers as we get a look at Devin Daniels and what he did throughout the ACC, not just for NC State, but this is a young man who is now in his 3rd year with the program. and relied on heavily by Kevin Keats for leadership as well as his on-court production. And right now, Coach Keats has his hands full with a challenge, trying to find a way to get his team back into this ball game, but more importantly, trying to find a way for his team to be a successfully finish the remainder of this season.
Well, this game was competitive for a little bit. The score was 11-10, and then Duke rattled off 14 straight points, and they have not looked back since. The lead ballooned to as many as 22 in that first half. Offensive foul against Jericho Helms.
You know, Doug, but another guy we haven't mentioned, Thomas Allen, the transfer from, Nebraska, who led NC State in scoring with 17 points over Syracuse on Tuesday. He has 2 points in this game, and not only just the 2 points, he doesn't have any steals. He hasn't been involved much on the defensive end of the floor. And again, he's a guy that you're going to have to rely on. With no Devin Daniels, you need someone with college basketball experience. Braxton Beverly, is dealing with health issues and unable to give you 100%. Even we see him anymore in this game. So guys like Thomas Allen, DJ Funderburk, they have to step it up.
And meanwhile, that foul on Helms was his third. In they go to Manny Bates over Williams, who picks up another foul.
Wendell Moore recognizing he has an advantage quickness-wise against DJ Funderburk, and Funderburk really just selling out on that possession, not staying solid, and walling up at the basket gives Wendell Moore Jr. an easy look and an easy layup as he continues to play very good basketball. 7 points for him on the evening now, as he's been the leading scorer for the Blue Devils over the past 4 games.
I made a point to ask Coach K from my own observation. I asked him in our visit yesterday. In the last few weeks, has Wendell Moore Jr. been playing with more aggression and more confidence? And he thought about it for a second and then said, actually, it's been going on longer than that, ever since about December. He felt like that there's so much on Wendell's plate coming into the year with all the freshmen. He's only a sophomore, but he's one of the veterans certainly on the roster. And he thought it just took a little while for him to get back to being himself, and he thinks you can stretch it, even though the stats the last 4 games, Corey, really catch your attention. Wendell's been playing with more confidence and aggression for longer than that.
He has, and it really started with their first game back from the 21-day layoff that the Blue Devils had, and he came out and had 25 points in that game in a huge win, I believe, over Boston College, where without his production, they would have lost that game with their home floor. But, Doug, and I haven't, again, we talked about my research. I haven't done the exact research for this. But I do know how old Wendell Moore Jr. is, and I know his birthday. I would say that there are probably 1 or 2 of the freshmen for Duke that are older than Wendell Moore Jr. And so when you talk about him being a sophomore, he's a young sophomore. He graduated high school at 17. He was 17 when he got to Duke. His birthday is September 29th, so he turned 18 at the beginning of his college basketball season. But most guys, but there are a lot of guys who come out of high school now at 19. This is a very young man when you consider what he does. And you look at his game on Tuesday, 24 points, 10 rebounds for him. He was the bright spot in that loss, but defensively, they just couldn't do anything with Notre Dame after holding a 20-point lead in that game.
Well, Cormac Ryan happened. That's all I could think watching that game. Cormac came out, what did he have, 21 in the first half, and that was a career high before the break. And the Irish just shot the lights out.
Yeah, let me change that. It was a 15-point lead because I know how technical you are with the numbers. So make sure I get that right.
I wasn't listening to you that time, CA. You could have said anything.
You don't listen to me often. That's the problem with what's going on right now. You don't listen to me enough.
What's your name again? That was my Bill Walton impersonation, by the way.
Yeah, it wasn't a good one.
No. No. Williams high low to Hurt. Now, you're as confident a shooter as I've ever known, Corey. Would you take on Matthew Hurt in a game of horse right now?
Absolutely. The one thing I can still do is shoot. I wouldn't play him one-on-one. Well, I don't know. I might be able to score Matthew Hurt. Defense isn't his strength. But again, I can't guard him. I know that much. But yeah, but shooting, absolutely. That's the thing about when you get older, you get better as a shooter.
Well, at least in your memory.
No. I tell you right now, I win a lot of shooting games. I win a lot of shooting games against young people now.
Yeah, notice how I didn't say, could you beat him one-on-one, because clearly we had to go straight to horse.
That was dangerous right there. Dangerous play. We'll check on Mark Williams when we come back as Duke in control.
Keep an eye on number 12 right here as I tell you about ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball presented by 5 Hour Energy, the official sponsor of Getting Stuff Done. And yes, that was our own Corey Alexander back in the day knocking down a jump shot at Cameron Indoor Stadium. And Corey, before I allow you to get talking about yourself, because that could take us a while, the reason we're showing this vintage 90s video is because with the way things are going at Duke right now, it's been since 1995 that the Blue Devils finished with a losing record. And if you look at all the numbers going back, and lots of folks have done it because, of course, right now Duke sits at 7-8 overall, 5-6 in the ACC. It's been a very long time since the folks at Cameron Indoor have had records and numbers like this.
And it's been a very long time since anyone has taken their gum out of their mouth and thrown it into the Cameron Crazy section, as did Randolph Childress in his highlight on that, which was disgusting. I need to talk with Randolph about that. I'm sure the Cameron Crazies did not appreciate that, as Mark Williams shoots 2 free throws from the flagrant foul leading into the break, as you see coming across. And I'm not sure if Helms, who that was, if they just tripped falling into him, but it was a very dangerous play. A flagrant one on Helms. And fortunately for Mark Williams, he was able to come out, shoot the free throws, ran off the floor, but it took a while to get him off the floor when we went to timeout.
Roach turned it over, back to the Wolfpack. Nice strong drive right to the hole by Cam Hayes.
Okay, and I can do this because this is one of my young guys, Cam Hayes. He has to be better. Cam Hayes came to NC State with the intentions of being their starting point guard and having the same type of season that you would expect for Jeremy Roach to have and Caleb Love to have at North Carolina. And he has not been that guy thus far. With Braxton Beverly playing injured, with Devin Daniels out, Cam Hayes has to be better. And he has the potential to do it. And again, I know his dad is, as well as his coach Freddie from Greensboro Day. When you think about this young man, we know that he has it. It's simply about getting it done. It's difficult to be a point guard, a freshman point guard in the ACC, but he has all the capabilities to be able to do it. And I know everyone is looking forward to seeing that happen for Cam Hayes, no one more so than Kevin Keats.
And there you see Shaquille Moore wearing the mask on the bench, and they were part of what is a very good recruiting class that was actually better until 5-star Josh Hall decided to instead turn pro, and he's on a 2-way contract with Oklahoma City right now. But after he decided to do that, Cam Hayes is the signature guy, the top-rated guy, or whatever you want to put into that, of this Wolfpack freshman class. Foul against the Blue Devils, and there is Cam Hayes, 6'3", 175 pounds, and as you said, Corey, out of Greensboro Day. He joined the starting lineup back on January 5th at Clemson, and since that time, he has now started 7 of the last 10 games.
And Cam reclassed up. I'd make sure I mentioned that he reclassed up to be able to be in this class and came out of high school a year early. But he's a special talent. And again, he's had games this year where you've been able to see it for NC State, just not consistently enough.
He's taking care of the basketball by and large. His assist-to-turnover ratio is very good. Six minutes into the second half, it's pretty much been all Duke. They led by as many as 22 points in the first half. Jamin Brakefield into the game, gets it back on the screen and roll, missed the layup.
But when you look at that breakdown from NC State, you know, there's no one in the arena, so we can clearly hear Kevin Keatts saying, switch it, switch it, switch it. And even still, the North Carolina State defenders don't switch the ball screen. Brakefield just missed a wide open layup. It wasn't a stop by NC State. It was a mistake by Duke. But Brakefield got a wide open layup because of another miscommunication. Coach is clearly yelling. If I can hear him, I know they can hear him.
Goldwire missed, and another miss by Brakefield at the rim.
You see Kevin Keatts just frustrated with another turnover for the Wolfpack. We mentioned 20 turnovers last time out versus Syracuse, where they didn't give themselves much of a chance late in that game. And now they're up to 15 against the Blue Devils, which have cost them significantly.
That would have been Matthew Hurt's first missed shot attempt from the floor, but it's a foul.
For those watching and they read the newspapers and see, well, wow, this coach makes this much money. This is not an easy profession. When you consider what Kevin Keatts and Mike Krzyzewski both going through right now with these young teams, coaching is a very unforgiving profession. Again, you can make very good money doing so. There's a lot of notoriety to it. But at the same time, when the level of your happiness depends upon 17 through 22, 23-year-old young men doing something on a consistent basis, there can be ebbs and flows in your emotions at all times. And we're seeing both these coaches deal with it this season, and none more so than Coach Keatts is dealing with it tonight.
And both of them would tell you, Coach K especially went way out of his way yesterday on our visit to let us know how much he loves his guys and that they're good guys, and is not frustrated with them. Obviously, he's not used to the losing, and obviously it hasn't gone the way he would want, but he just couldn't say enough good things about the young men in his charge.
And Kevin Keatts would echo that. He would say the same thing about his guys. It's simply the fact that they don't have experienced guards to run his system. So they're actually having to play differently. You can go back through Kevin Keatts' entire coaching career, whether it be at Hargrave, whether UNC Wilmington or NC State. There's never a time where he started 3 forwards, or 2 forwards and a center. But that's what he's having to do right now, just to have his best players on the floor because they have so many injuries and lack of experience.
Hey, he always plays outside in, and now he's trying to do a complete 180 and play inside out based on his roster makeup. How about Mark Williams? Now 7 points, 4 block shots.
Yeah, Mark going outside in. Big Mark knocking down the jump shot.
We'll step away with Duke on top by 21.
Here we go.
And a slam.
Big time.
With Corey Alexander, I'm Doug Sherman, and a couple of weeks ago we had a Zoom with Coach Kevin Keatts and had a little fun. I wanted to ask him a few questions to get his one-word answer and see what he thought. So I started with high top or low, and Corey, he said
low.
Of
old
course.
people don't wear high tops.
Exactly, but I wasn't going to call either of you old people, so I let you say that.
Well, I'll
all
say
right, my second question was metal backboard, glass backboard. And he said glass, but you remember what he said beyond that?
It was something about the sound of the metal, the chain nets. That's a
exactly.
difference.
Exactly.
So outside.
All metal net. He loved to hear that sound. But the reason I played that game was because I was setting up for the third question, Hargraves or Oak Hill, knowing full well that Coach Keatts is a longtime Hargraves guy, and my partner, of course, played at and continues to work for Oak Hill. So you two had differing opinions on that one.
Well, Coach Keatts got the answer wrong. I mean, that's what it was. Regardless of whether it's personal, he answered incorrectly because it's clearly Oak Hill, even though, we used to have some significant battles. I was only a part of those once Coach Keatts was gone from Hargrave when he was actually an assistant coach at Louisville is when I actually went to Oak Hill coaching. But No, I mean, great. And he talked about the matchup between the two. Of course, Oak Hill and Hargrave are unable to play each other regular season games because Hargrave is a postgraduate school, as Oak Hill is a traditional prep high school. So can't play a real game, but some big-time competition between the two. And that was my first introduction to actually Braxton Beverly, who gave us the business when he was the point guard for Hargrave his junior year.
Well, not surprisingly, Coach Keats has had a pretty good pipeline over the years with Hargrave's guy. The other he has on the current roster along with Beverly is DJ Funderburg. And Coach Keats also wanted to say, you know, Coach Smith in the past could have helped me out a little bit from Oak Hill as well, but I guess that's just not necessarily been in the cards.
But he was talking about Coach Smith. He wasn't talking about me, so I'm not going to comment on that.
Well, it is something when you are in that world as you are, Corey, you know better than anybody how important those prep schools are, both for the growth and development of these players and also finding the right fit at the college level for these kids.
Ooh, nice finish there by Manny Bates. Manny Bates, heard you talking about Mark Williams blocking his shot, and we've got two shot blockers in this game today. Manny Bates challenging Mark Williams at the rim. I tell you, it's very rare that you see, outside of University of North Carolina, you see any teams playing two bigs as Mark Williams returns the favor on the other end for Manny Bates. But the little difference is no one in the area, meaning a bad defensive rotation for Mark Williams to get the easy dunk.
Jericho Helms going to work. And he is fouled by Jordan Goldwire.
Well, we got the big fellas going at it. Manny Bates off of a nice find from Shaquille Moore going over top of Mark Williams. But on the other end of the floor, yeah, Mark didn't like that at all. On the other end of the floor, Mark Williams a little get back, but Manny not in the area and no one rotating defensively to challenge Mark, who gets the easy finish.
DJ Stewart off the turnover, banks it home.
You know, and I don't think DJ Stewart gets talked about enough when you consider what he's done this year. And, you know, Jalen Johnson gets a lot of the headlines. But because of that, we're going to talk about DJ when we come back, since people don't talk about him enough, Doug.
And now for today's assist of the game, brought to you by State Farm. And for that, we go to the freshman from Whitney Young in Chicago, DJ Stewart.
And DJ Stewart, who is the ACC's leading freshman scorer, dropping dimes to another freshman, Mark Williams, who comes up with the big finish for our State Farm assist of the game. And Duke has had 9 assists on their 20 made field goals in this game thus far, sharing the basketball very well. And that's another one to Jamin Brakefield, who has had good minutes for the Blue Devils, as pretty much everyone who stepped on the court for Duke has been able to produce in this game tonight.
DJ Stewart is just the latest in what's been a really good pipeline to Duke from Mike Krzyzewski's hometown of Chicago. Been a pipeline including Corey Maggette, Jahlil Okafor, Jabari Parker, Chris Collins, on and on and on, and it's no coincidence, and DJ Stewart is the latest in that group.
And DJ Stewart trying to become the 7th Duke freshman in the last 8 years to be the ACC's leading freshman scorer. So, of course, Dougie Fresh, I'm going to ask you a trivia question, which is an easy answer. You should know this. Who was the one player that interrupted that streak for the Blue Devils?
Matthew Hurt was not that guy, obviously, as he knocks down another 3 and continues his perfect shooting on the night. I'm trying to stretch it out here, Corey, until we get to this under 8 timeout commercial break, because clearly I don't know the answer.
which is odd that you do not know the answer, as Jericho Helms knocks down to the 3. And got to send a shout out to my guy Frank Bennett, who coached Jericho Helms at Chaminade in St. Louis.
Yeah, that's one of the great tidbits that we see in his bio. Jericho is the third leading scorer in Chaminade's high school basketball program history, and the two guys ahead of him are
Brad Beal, Jason Tatum, who was in the class when a Duke freshman did not lead the ACC in scoring. That's a hint, Dougie Fresh.
I know, which is hard to believe because obviously Tatum was the best of that bunch.
But a Duke freshman did not lead ACC freshman in scoring that season. And the person that did was...
I need a clue.
He played for the Wolfpack. I can't give you a bigger hint than that.
I know. I'm completely drawing a blank.
It would have been the 2017 ACC Rookie of the Year, Dennis Smith Jr., who averaged 18.1 points per game that season and also led NC State to a win at Cameron Indoor.
And if I can be honest with you, for the first time, if I can be honest with you, Corey, I thought Dennis Smith Jr. first, but then I thought, no, he's older than that. It would have been before 17 when it seems to me longer ago than that. But he was who I thought of. I just was afraid to say it.
And second was Josh Okogie in that class.
You're doing your research, Corey. I like it.
Nah, I just got a memory of an elephant, buddy.
Well, we'll ask the memory of an elephant what he thinks Duke has to do to get to the NCAA tournament, if not win the ACC tournament. Can they run the table and get there? Maybe. Off to a great start here today. Did we just hear Coach call Fonz a gangster?
But see, that's not what it is. You got to understand, that's that East St. Louis. That's the difference. It ain't gangster, it's East St. Louis. You got to know that about Fonz, Coach. See, that's on Fonz to school Coach Greenberg about what East St. Louis is really about. Or you may want to call it East Boogie, but again, that's only if you know people from around there.
Well, ask Konzo. He'd tell you the same thing, right?
Zoe will definitely tell you the same thing. You know, I mean, you got to know somebody. You can't just roll around East Boogie. You got to know somebody. I know Fonz, I know Zoe, so I'm good at East Boogie, but I won't go without them.
Well, there is one of the stars for Duke today. A couple of career highs for young Mr. Williams, 13 points, 5 block shots, as he continues to grow as a first year for the Blue Devils. Moore gets the roll on the second free throw. And as I tease going to break, Corey, Duke has 6 more scheduled regular season games before the ACC tournament in Greensboro. Assuming they're going to hold on to win this, they'll be 8-8 overall, 6-6 in the ACC, still on the outside of the NCAA tournament bubble looking in. But if they run the table, what does Duke need to do to potentially get an at-large bid, or is that completely off the table at this point?
I don't think it's completely off the table. I think if they were to run the table, they would have a very good shot, because when you consider who is involved in running the table, that would be another opportunity to beat North Carolina. That would be Virginia. That would be Florida State. So if you think about, if they're able to do those things, and it's so interesting, when you look at these numbers, I had the game where Duke beat Clemson. And I thought at that point Duke had won 2 in a row. I thought they had turned the corner, and they were on their way. I felt like they would find a way to get into the NCAA tournament. Well, the defense has failed them since. Well-documented struggles on the defensive end of the floor. But when you consider what they have remaining, there are opportunities. The problem with Duke is they haven't really beaten the good teams this year. And, they lost to Michigan State, who's no longer a good team, but was a very good team at the time. They lost to Illinois, but they don't have any signature wins. They lost at Virginia Tech. And so they've taken too many opportunities away from getting those signature wins in ACC play, but still have a number of those remaining to where if they do run the table, they might have a chance of sneaking into the tournament.
Yeah, one of the things that's shocking about this Duke season for me each time they have lost to Cameron. They've lost 4 times this season at home, which they go years at a time without losing at home. And it just really is something. And you get so accustomed to the excellence that Coach K has had when they have one of these off seasons, it really can be jarring. But you're saying there's still a chance that if they run the table, they could get an at-large into the big dance.
Well, let's look at it this way. Let's say Duke runs the table. Okay, they finish up. They beat Virginia. They beat Florida State. They beat North Carolina, and they win the remainder of the ACC games. And then they make a strong run in the ACC tournament, even if they don't win it. And can you imagine Duke as an 11 seed in a play-in game, at the beginning of the NCAA tournament? I mean, Duke is the biggest national brand in college basketball. So who wouldn't be tuned into that game? And again, I'm sure that's something that the NCAA would love to have, is the Blue Devils sneak into the tournament and be playing on that first night, as an 11 seed, not a play-in game, but what's called the first round now.
Well, today's game is just a snapshot, but the defense against NC State has been so much better. Duke came in 15th in the ACC in three-point percentage defense, and so far today the Wolfpack is now exactly 1 for 9 from distance. Matthew Hurt, on the other hand, has been perfect from distance.
And Matthew Hurt now knocking down his 6th three-pointer on the evening and continues to play great basketball, especially for a guy who wasn't supposed to start this game.
More thought about it, and with 3 minutes left in a one-sided ball game, pulls it back out. Hurt. That would have given him a new career high. Instead, it's his first three-point miss.
But for Matthew Hurt's sake, I hope he stepped on the line and that was not a three-point attempt. Oh, no, they counted as a 3. He's now 6 for 7. I think they need to go back and look at that, correct it, make it a 2.
Well, he came into the game at 40%, and obviously that number's going way up. Is he first team all-conference, Corey?
If Duke wins more games and gets into, the top half of the ACC, he has a chance. But right now, I would say he's on the outside looking in. His production over the last 5 games coming into this one hasn't been what he did in the previous 10. But games like this can help get him back into that conversation.
Final 2 minutes at PNC Arena. Duke 69, NC State 48. This, by the way, is the first time Duke has taken the floor to play a game with a losing record this century. It was back in the 99-2000 season when they lost their first 2 games. Oh, by the way, they went on to reach the Sweet 16, so it all worked out that year. But this was the first time since 1999 that the Blue Devils took the floor with a sub-500 record.
Well, when you consider that year they went to the Sweet 16, but the following year they won a national championship in 2001. So when you think about, and that's one of the things that Coach K has said about this team, that this will pay off for them. They're going through these growing pains right now, but this will pay off, and he plans to be around for it.
Indeed, we're looking forward to that one as the ACC action continues on ESPN with Corey Alexander. I'm Doug Sherman. And Wednesday over on ACC Network, they'll have a midweek afternoon/evening college hoop lineup as we get a shot clock violation. Boston College, Georgia Tech start things off at noon Eastern. Then at 4:30 after women's lacrosse, NC State squares off against Pittsburgh, followed by Syracuse Louisville. And Duke takes on Wake Forest to cap the day. Don't have ACCN? Go to getaccn.com for instant access. I, for one, can't wait, Corey. I know you'll be tuned in as I am, watching everything we can.
Absolutely. It's my pastime right now, considering I haven't been out of the house in 3 days, is watching basketball, both college and NBA, and, I couldn't be happier doing it.
Not the biggest hardship on the planet right now.
No.
Well, what do you think? We've been talking about Duke in glowing terms all afternoon and into the early evening, up 19. They've led by as many as 23. It's really never been in doubt. Does this make you think that Duke is making a big step, or are you just going to have the jury still be out?
Jury's still out. I think this is a step in the right direction, but I believe for as good as Duke was in this game, NC State was equally as bad. And, playing without Braxton Beverly much of the second half. Of course, Devin Daniels out for the season. It's a change. It's an adjustment for Coach Keats and his group, having to play with 3 forwards on the floor. And right now, they're not doing it very well. So, jury's still out on the Blue Devils.
Now for tonight's player of the game, brought to you by Pedialyte. No surprise, Matthew Hurt not perfect because he missed his last shot beyond the three-point line, but brilliant nonetheless.
I will say the jury is not still out on Matthew Hurt, however. He picked up where he started the season off, playing great basketball and knocking down 6 out of his 7 three-point attempts in this game. And Matthew Hurt has been one of the bright spots for the Blue Devils all season long.
And now let's take a look at tonight's Capital One rewarding performance. The other running theme tonight, Corey, has been the defense played by Duke.
Well, and I believe that the Blue Devils are getting the message. And again, executing it is one thing, but when you actually are getting the message, that matters. Wendell Moore multiple times getting out in transition because of a steal. DJ Stewart getting in a passing lane, causing the turnover. And that's what Duke was able to do in this game and disrupt NC State and expose their weaknesses.
Final score 69-53. Duke gets back to 500. Now 8-8 overall, 6-6 in the ACC. For Corey Alexander, I'm Doug Sherman saying so long.